The Underneath, Part 6, Playground. As Adeena and the others hurried across the street to the playground entrance, Ahab reached into his satchel, retrieving his heat ray gun. He fiddled with it for a moment as they reached the building, pressing themselves against the wall on either side of the entrance. Balancing his shotgun in one arm, John leaned over with his free hand and tested the barrier. "Locked," he whispered. Ahab nodded. That was to be expected. He took aim at the door with his heat ray, and the handle melted into orange slag, burning a hole straight through the lock to the other side. As Ahab lowered his gun, John stepped forward, shouldering the door open. Together, the four of them crept into a wide, pitch-black room, with only the ambient light from the street lamps outside to guide them. "Trina," whispered Ahab, "illuminate." The dummy's eyes lit up a bright green, casting beams of light into the space. As Adeena adjusted to the sudden brightness, she registered loops and tunnels, bars and slides. Winding stairs led to multiple floors, and various platforms dropped back to the ground. It's an actual playground," she whispered, "but it's massive." John nodded. "Yeah, that's gotta be at least a few stories tall. Probably several secure rooms close to the center. This might be a little bit like a maze." Ahab cleared his throat, pointing to their left. "Well, we better hurry." Adeena followed his finger to see a 10-foot, hulking Annie with the features of a parrot hunched against the far wall of the warehouse, seemingly powered down. Ahab pointed again, exposing a second Annie, this one designed like a raccoon. As Adeena turned, she saw yet another mechanical nightmare, its tall ears identifying it as a rabbit. Gulping, Adeena followed the others into a large, yellow tunnel, their footsteps echoing against the walls as they made their way into the labyrinth. Ahab aimed some kind of sensor ahead of them, frowning. "I'm not getting much in the way of heat signatures," he said. "But we know they brought the kids here," John insisted. "Maybe they're being kept in a room that prevents outside scans." Ahab lowered his gaze. "Maybe." John stepped ahead of Adeena and Ahab, leaving Trina in the back to watch their exit. They twisted and turned, curved and crawled, making their way across ladders and steps and ropes. The inside of the massive playground felt cold and sterile to Adeena, and she shuddered at the thought of being trapped inside for a week, like Datique was. "Hey," Ahab finally said, pointing down a hallway to their right. "The schematics we pulled indicated a holding cell in that direction. It's not too far from here." Suddenly, rapid footsteps approached, and a sleep policeman appeared around a nearby corner, wielding a crowbar. John swung the shotgun in his direction, but he kicked the former bodyguard in the chest, knocking him to the floor and discharging a round into the ceiling. As Adeena's ears rang, the sleep policeman hurled the crowbar at Ahab's arm, battering the heat ray gun out of his hand and sending it sliding across the floor. "Hey!" Trina screeched. "You big meanie." She hurled herself at the sleep policeman, swinging her knife, but he ducked below her attack, flip-kicking her in the back so that she accelerated, colliding with the far wall. John crawled to his feet, clutching his shotgun, while Adeena rushed to Ahab's side. "Is your hand okay?" she asked the boy, concerned. He flexed his fingers for a few seconds. "Yeah, I'll be fine." Another shotgun blast reverberated throughout the tunnels, and Adeena spun around to see the sleep policeman hurtling backwards, the front of his shirt shredded. He tumbled across the floor, where Trina appeared, pinning his arm to the ground with her knife. The sleep policeman snarled silently, trying to pull away, but he was firmly planted there. John walked over to him, leveling his shotgun. "This is for Paco," he said, pulling the trigger. The shotgun bucked, emitting a spray of pellets that disintegrated the sleep policeman's head from such a short distance. Blood fountained from the decapitated corpse, and it fell still. Adeena backed away from the violent scene, covering her eyes with her remaining hand. "I don't think I'm cut out for this." "Don't worry," Ahab reassured her as he retrieved his heat ray gun from the ground. "Once we recover Datique, we'll get your family to John's safe house in the overhead. No more violence." With that, he reached out, opening the door to the holding cell and exposed a room full of tiny, charred skeletons. "Oh," he murmured, stepping back. "Oh no." "What?" John said, approaching the doorway. "Is Lena in there?" He barged into the room and stopped, dropping the shotgun from shaking hands. "Where are the children?" The others followed him into the room, the walls lined with chairs attached to electrical diodes, the floor littered with blackened bones. Ahab moved to the nearest chair, examining it, while John walked in circles around the skeletons. "What is this?" he boomed at Ahab. "Are we in the wrong room?" Ahab stepped away from the chair, burying his head in his hands. "No, these are cranial interceptors." "What the fuck does that mean, Ahab?" John yelled. Ahab paused for a moment before continuing. "They use them to extract memories forcibly. They download the memories of a subject, but in the process, it lobotomizes them." "What does that have to do with Natik?" John asked. "With Lena?" Ahab turned to face the skeletons on the ground. "Don't you understand, John? The underneath replacements wouldn't be convincing unless they knew everything about the original ones, unless they were debriefed about significant events, about personality traits, character flaws." "Oh, they drained the information out of the children," Adeena whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Out of my brother. And then, Ahab gestured to the floor. "They didn't have any use for brain-dead bodies." John grabbed Ahab by the shoulders, lifting him into the air and slamming him against the wall. "Don't you tell me that. Don't you fucking tell me that Lena's dead." Adeena slowly sat on the floor, curling up in the fetal position, as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Say something, goddammit!" John screamed in Ahab's face. Ahab stared back at the man, his eyes watering. I don't know what to say." Overhead, the lights flickered on, producing a neon red that filled the horrific space. Adeena heard machines outside roar to life, and heavy, mechanical footsteps approached. "Uh-oh," Trina whispered. John snarled, dropping Ahab and snatching the shotgun back off the ground. "I'll find her myself." "John, wait," Ahab pleaded. "She's gone. They're all gone. But we aren't. Don't get us all killed to chase a fantasy." Adeena nodded, wiping away her tears. "Ahab's right. We couldn't have done all of this without you. Please don't leave us now." Growling, John ran his fingers through his hair. Okay. Let's just go then." They exited the room, sprinting around the corner and almost running headfirst into the raccoon Annie. It growled at them, a voice a chilling mix of mechanical and animalistic, and produced razor-sharp claws from its fingertips. Behind them, Adeena heard the parrot Annie screech as it approached. Trina reached up, tugging at Ahab's shirt. He looked down, and they stared at each other silently for a moment as John unleashed a barrage of shotgun blasts into the two Annies. Finally, the doll nodded, pointing back at the holding cell. "I'm out," John announced, dropping the shotgun and unholstering his pistol, firing repeatedly into the face of the raccoon Annie. The machine seemed unfazed as its outer layer of faux fur shredded away, revealing a silver skeleton beneath. It reached out, picking John up and hurling him to the floor with a sickening thud. Suddenly, Trina's mouth flopped open, and a shrill, steady scream emerged. The two Annies froze, shuddering at the sound, and turned to the dummy, eyes glowing red. She raced down the hallway, away from the rest of the group, her high-pitched cry unwavering. The Annies rushed after her, leaving John and the others alone as they stomped away. "John," Ahab said, "we need to get back to the holding cell. It's sturdier than the other rooms." "Sturdier?" Adeena asked, confused. "Why does that matter?" Ahab sighed dejectedly. "Trina's gonna save us one last time." He led John and Adeena back into the holding cell, careful not to step on any of the bones as they closed the door behind them. Trina's screams slowly faded away, along with the heavy footsteps of the larger Annies. After a moment, the thunderous explosion rocked the playground, the shockwave knocking all three people to the floor. Smoke crawled under the crack of the holding cell door, and Adeena coughed, trying to clear her lungs. "Hurry, before more arrive," Ahab said, opening the door. Adeena and John followed him, gasping as sunlight washed across their faces. The entire back half of the playground was gone, along with the rear wall of the warehouse containing it. Warped metal and burning plastic created a trail to freedom, and they followed it eagerly. The car ride to the small jungle gym where Adeena had appeared was somber, and no one seemed to know what to say for most of the journey. Finally, Ahab spoke up, his voice hoarse and soft. "I'm sorry. You know, about Natik, and about Lena." John nodded, his eyebrows furrowing. "I'm sorry about Trina, too. I know how much she meant to you." "It's okay," Ahab responded. "I can rebuild her. The core of her consciousness originates somewhere within the source code of the collective Annie AI. I'll find her in there again someday." The car pulled up to the edge of the sidewalk, and Adeena saw the slide that had started this whole mess sitting empty only a few dozen feet away. "What now?" she asked. "There are no children to save, no families to relocate. It's just us and the sleep police and this coup from the underneath." Ahab turned to face her. "I don't blame whatever decision you two make. However, to me, this is far from over. We have over 100 underneath children masquerading across the world in the overhead. That we know for sure. I'm going to find them. I'm going to get the answers I need. And then we'll see where it goes from there." John looked at the boy. "I'm in. What's left for me in either world anyway?" "As long as we get my parents somewhere safe first, I'm with you too," Adeena agreed. "Someone has to answer for Natik." Ahab locked eyes with the girl. "They will. I promise." Squinting against the setting sun, Ahab and Adeena climbed out of the right side of the car, the vehicle temporarily blocking their view of the jungle gym. As John exited the left side, Adeena thought she saw the shadows shift, and a stray beam of sunlight on the ground grew brighter, warping in the man's direction. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. John looked at his feet as the stray sunlight beam crawled up his body towards his head. "That's strange." Ahab turned to see what they were discussing, and his eyes widened. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the beam of light narrowed, and John's skull exploded.